You know, when I was preparing to shoot this video, well, actually this review of the Borresen X3, I was thinking about that poll that I ran a couple of weeks ago. It's called something like, what does good sound like to you? And I was really proud of that poll, and it's gotten like 450 responses, comments, of what you guys think good sound sounds like. And of course, the answers are a bit all over the place. But the things that keep popping up are soundstage. I think that is the most common attribute that people are looking for. And then there's dynamic range, and then there's bass, and tonality, and a well-balanced sound. Yeah. And I bring that up. And by the way, I will link to that poll below. Yeah. But anyway, I'm excited because the Borresen sort of checks all of those boxes, especially the sound staging is truly remarkable. I don't think I've ever heard a speaker that throws a soundstage like this speaker does. So that's pretty amazing. Now, when I first heard and spotted this speaker, it was at their local New York dealer, Hi-Fi Loft, a couple of months ago, really. And I was like, wow, that's a pretty cool looking speaker. And they said, yeah, guess how much it costs? And I said, well, it's made in Denmark, right? And they said, yeah. And I'm looking at it and just the build quality of it, and just its presence in the room. It's a big speaker. It's 51 inches tall and like 22 inches deep at its base. It's a big speaker, but a skinny speaker, right? And by the way, at the back of the speaker, it's kind of a bow tail thing. It's only about 3 inches wide in the back, so it's a very unusual shape. Anyway, so they say, guess how much it costs? And, you know, I've been around the blocks. I said, you know, 20,000, 2022, something like that. They're like, no. And I said, more than that? They said, no, less. You're way too high at 20,000. Now, I'm not going to tell you the price just yet. I want you to stick around for a while. But anyway, this is, as they say, for what it is, an absolute steal. Yeah, I really do think so. Now, the speaker itself, like I said, it's a big speaker. It has a big speaker sound. And when you look at it, you see a rather unusual driver arrangement, like a 4.5-inch driver on the top, then a tweeter, which is a ribbon tweeter, not a folded ribbon tweeter, but a true ribbon tweeter. It, by the way, is open back, meaning that the rear wave of the ribbon is free to go out the back of the speaker. That's pretty special right there. And then there are two woofers below. Okay, so it's a Danish company. Now let's start with those drivers. That top driver, it's a carbon fiber driver. And it looks familiar, that checkerboard pattern. Like, yeah, I've seen that on other speakers. But it isn't this one. This is designed and made wholly by Borresen. The ones you see on other company speakers that have this similar look, that checkerboard look, that's not this driver. So it's a carbon fiber cone, but it's called spread toe. I've never heard that before. I don't really know exactly what it is, but that's the material of the cone, but it's actually a 3-layer sandwich. So it's the carbon fiber on the part you see, and then a honeycomb layer, and then on the back of that, another layer of the spread toe carbon fiber. And it makes for a very, very light, but very strong driver. So that, you know, there's no breakup. But the breakup modes are minimal on this driver. That's what they're shooting for. And so this is let's say a mid woofer, the one on the top. And then the two woofers on the bottom, they're the same physical driver, but those are actual just woofers. And they cross over to that tweeter the mid woofer crosses over at the tweeter at 2.5K. I'm going to put up the specifications and finally tell you the price. The price is, for the black or white finishes, $11,000 a pair. They come in gloss black, which is what I have here. My samples are gloss black, but it also comes in white, gloss white. And you know what? I think the white, if I was buying these, I'd probably buy the white one. Now, it's interesting, by the way, that the mid woofer at the top is in its own compartment The tweeter, the ribbon tweeter, is also in its own compartment, and they are, let's say, vented through those rear ports. The midwoofer is not a bass reflex design. The two ports behind that midwoofer are basically for ventilation. It's actually working like a dipole speaker. If you walk behind the speaker and put your ear up to those ports, those holes, you hear pretty much what it sounds like in front of the speaker. So it's the full range of that driver going out through the back of the speaker. So it's functioning as a dipole speaker for that 4.5 inch, and also for the ribbon tweeter. Same thing with the port for the ribbon, same deal. Now the two woofers below, those are bass reflex design woofers. So they are, the ports on the back are functioning like a standard port, although they're much smaller in diameter than most ports. It's a very rigid cabinet. It weighs 121 pounds. The speaker stands 51 inches tall. It's about 9 inches wide in the front, and as I said, about 3 inches wide in the back. The build quality is peerless. The footers are really nice, though they're not adjustable. They look like they're going to be adjustable, but in fact, they're not. The carbon fiber trim on the speaker, on the cabinet, isn't there for purely decorative purposes. It's actually there to stiffen the cabinet. Inside the cabinet, there is stuffing, and the stuffing is real wool. Boy, it's been a while since I heard of a company using real wool on the interior of their speaker. And also, the interior surfaces of the cabinet are lined with synthetic wool. But the actual stuffing inside the speaker is real wool. And a very discreet set of binding posts, not by-wire binding posts, but nice binding posts. And the interior wiring inside the speaker is also proprietary to Borresen. I want to talk a bit about setup details. Now, as I mentioned, this is a big speaker. It's 51 inches high, and the tweeter is 39 inches from the floor, the center of the tweeter. And then, of course, the mid-woofer is above that. So I asked Michael Børresen about that, he's the designer, and he said he wanted a big and tall soundstage. And it really does work. I mean, it's not rocket science in this case, but it does what he wants it to do in having a very big, tall stage, which is, you know, a bit more like real life. So there's that. Now, I had to fuss with toe-in more than the usual amount, because when you're not on the money with toe-in, which is, let's say, a moderate amount of toe-in with them firing, I think, this slightly behind my head, when the toe-in isn't right, the sound is a bit defocused. But when you get it on the money, it just locks in. That soundstage is super clear. I mean, it's like you hear this separation between the instruments and the singers. The outlines of each instrument and each singer is just so much sharper than I hear with other speakers. It's kind of wow. It's a wow moment to hear it with that level of clarity. It's like, this is a fast sounding speaker, but it's not a hard sounding speaker. It's not a bright sounding speaker. And that tweeter is, yeah, part of the magic of what makes this the Borresen sound. Now, I was raving very recently about the folded ribbon tweeter in the Golden Ear Technology T66. That's a great speaker. But that tweeter in the T66 cannot approach what this tweeter does. It's in a whole other class of high frequency reproduction, which leads to incredible transient response. Really, really impressive. You feel like you're listening to space and time with this speaker, the space that the musicians recorded in, and the speed, the time element is just so much more alive than I'm used to. The rest of the system used over the course of this review was the linear tube audio microzonal preamplifier, the PassLabs XA25 power amplifier, the DAC was the Mola Mola Tambaki, CD transport was the Jay's Audio CDT2, and the turntable was the Technics SL1200G with a Lyra Delos cartridge, and the phono preamplifier was the Parasound JC3 Plus. As for the bass plunges down to the mid 30 hertz range in my room, which is pretty darn impressive for a pair well, of 4.5-inch drivers. They may be high-tech drivers, but how those little drivers can move that much air is pretty darn impressive. And this speaker plays at quiet volumes really well as the Klipsch Cornwall 4s that I had a couple of years ago. As memory served, no, nothing has touched the Klipsch Cornwall 4s in terms of really hushed, late-night quiet listening levels. But this one, the X3, isn't that far behind. I spent many hours listening at midnight, 1 o'clock in the morning, because it was one of those I just wanted to keep listening more and more and more. It was that kind of experience reviewing this speaker. But the first album that I played was this one, Paul McCartney Unplugged. Now this is an unusually good sounding record, especially for Paul. He's made a lot of really sounding recordings, but this one, his voice quality sounds so much more natural. Acoustic instruments sound more acoustic. You know, there's this tonal rightness to the sound. And a lot of them, remember, this is a live recording that was done for TV, for MTV. And a lot of times, Paul is somewhat off mic. And that off mic quality, I never noticed it quite like that before on any other speaker, but I was certainly aware of it with the X3. And since I was in a Paul mood, I went and I played his first solo album, the one called McCartney. Now, I've always liked this record a lot because it has kind of a Paul post-Beatles afterglow. He actually may have recorded it while the Beatles were still together. But in any case, it has that kind of Paul can do no wrong. You know, and the songs are kind of sappy and all that stuff. And he recorded the McCartney album at home. But anyway, it's not a great sounding record. It's kind of bright EQ-wise. It's kind of bright, a little edgy, maybe even some unintentional distortion creeping in there because he was his own engineer, so he was playing the guitar. He wasn't thinking about levels. In any case, I love the music on this recording, but the contrast between the McCartney album and the McCartney Unplugged album was vast because McCartney Unplugged is such a beautiful sounding record. Great music. Paul seems really comfortable. But yeah, that's an audiophile quality recording, Unplugged. But McCartney, it's not so good. Another aspect of the imaging that is exceptional is the way this speaker can image wider than the locations of the actual speakers. It can just throw this big, spacious, but still very sharply focused sound stage. Now, I will say that depth was not particularly exceptional. It was good, but nothing great about the depth, at least in my room, in my setup. Maybe in other setups that could improve, but the way I heard it, soundstage depth was not a strength of this speaker. For fun, I played this Les Claypool recording, this track, Pipeline, this classic rock track, right? And his bass was so intense. It was just like tearing out of the speaker. Those little 4.5-inch drivers were taking no prisoners, man. They were kicking ass. It was so powerful. And the texture and speed of the bass was extraordinary. Oh, and the other thing is, as for dynamic range capabilities, I would say for a speaker with a couple of 4.5-inch woofers, it does amazingly well. But it's not going to sound like a speaker with a 15-inch woofer. You're not going to be confused about that. It does have its limitations. And it does go down to 30 hertz or mid 30 hertz range. But if you really crave that deep, deep, deep bass, yeah, you're going to use a subwoofer with it. But that's true for almost all speakers. I mean, I'm trying to think of exceptions. It's like if you really want that room-shaking bass, even with speakers that are many times the cost of this one, you're probably going to need a sub. And you probably need a sub if that's what you want. This recording by Tendre, now I'm sure I'm mangling the pronunciation, I apologize. But anyway, it's a beautiful recording, very uncluttered. It's kind of new agey electronic, but it has a lot of acoustic instruments on, like piano sounds really good, and voice. And you just hear, again, the spaces between the instruments, between the singers, just so clearly defined, so like reach out and touch. I don't want to say holographic, I think that's a cliche at this point, but yeah, definitely in the holographic category. And this music is just so soothing but interesting. It weaves a spell. It absolutely does. Continuing, I went to this recording, Crosby, Stills and Nash. This is the super duper mobile fidelity pressing. And I'm playing it. And by the way, the amplifier used up to this point in the review was the Pass XA25. And I'm playing Crosby, Stills and Nash. And I've heard this recording gazillions of times before. But what I heard for the first time, as far as I can tell, for the first time, I could hear their individual voices in their harmonies. I could pick them out. I was like, never like that. Before, the blend was smooth and beautiful, but not that I could hear them as individual singers. And over the X3, I could. And it only made the music, I'm talking like an audiophile nerd, of course, but it made the music, it made their performances that much more engaging and extraordinary and just a thing of wonder to behold. And yeah, to play a recording that I know this well and hear it like that was spine tingling. So then I'm playing this James Brown 2 CD set of instrumentals. Yeah, with band. And James Brown on some tracks is playing a Hammond B3 organ. He's a really good organ player. And these are funky charts with a lot of brass and stuff, and they just kick ass. And at this point I thought, I should swap out the speakers, the X3s, for my reference speakers, the Pure Audio Project Duet 15s. Now the Duet 15s have, a 15-inch woofer. So one speaker is skinny with little, really different looking speakers and really different sounding speakers. It was immediately apparent that the X3 was faster, clearer transient response, a much more, in that sense, alive sounding speaker. Now, on the other side of the street with the Pure Audio Project, the sound was fuller, more organic, more meat on the bone, just weightier, but slower. Possibly even by comparison, sluggish, because, well, the X3 is such a fast speaker that this one, the Pure Audio Project, sounds slow, certainly by comparison. But it does have its charms. But in terms of the race for transparency and resolution and all that stuff, there's no contest that the X3 was the better speaker. But the thing is, the X3 sounds, by comparison, like a small speaker, right? It sounds, this way. It sounds not as va-va-voom, So they're doing different things. There's no speaker that checks every box, right? No matter if it's 20,000 or 200,000, none of them are perfect. Neither of these are perfect speakers, but they will appeal to different types of buyers. That goes without saying, although I just said it. As I'm going through these listening sessions, I had a bit of a deja vu moment thinking about when I reviewed the KEF Reference 3 Meta. Now that's a bigger speaker, really tall speaker. It's $15,000 a pair. And that speaker had some of the magic of this one, of the X3. But still, and I'm not doing a side-by-side comparison, but the X3 does seem like the faster, clearer, more transparent speaker. And the KEF Meta 3 Reference has more va-va-voom, more dynamic punch. It is a more powerful sounding speaker than this one. I think you know where we're going at this point, right? So Steve, what do you really think of the Borresen X3? I think it looks, feels, and sounds like a much more expensive speaker than it actually is. In that sense, it truly is a bargain. If an $11,000 pair speaker can be a bargain, this one is a bargain. But it rearranged my brain. It really did, because I am not the guy who chases transparency and clarity. These are not the biggies for me. But I was seduced by this sound. I fell in love with this sound. I kept pulling out more and more vinyl and more CDs because I went, oh, what does this sound like? What does this sound like? Because I kept getting more from it. I was feeling more from the music, hearing more from the music with these speakers. So again, this is why I love my job. And I think I definitely want to do more. And I'm really sorry to see this one go back, because the guys are going to come and take it away. And I wave bye-bye, and a little tear is going to be in the corner of my eye because I'm going to miss these speakers when they're gone. Absolutely. And oh yes, thank you again to Hi-Fi Loft, to Mike and Jason. Thank you again for setting this whole thing up. Now, yes, it's true. The moment we've all been waiting for, the Audiophiliac viewer system of the day. Wow, this one comes from Trung. He's 44 years old and lives in Los Angeles. The speaker cabinets in these pictures, he's into DIY, and the speaker cabinets were originally built by an unknown maker 40 years ago, but with bigger horn-loaded 18-inch woofers. Then Trung reimagined the speakers and topped them off with horn mid-ranges using Altec A11B horns and compression horn tweeters by Dayton Audio. The speakers weigh a total of nearly 400 pounds. Now, for the rest of the system, there's a Rotel RC 1070 preamp, Rotel RB 1050 power amp, Rotel RP 1100Q turntable with a Shure V15 HRP cartridge, and for display there is a Pioneer Elite DV37. Pretty cool. Thanks, Trung. Okay, we are back. My name is Steve Guttenberg, and I am the Audiophiliac. Thank you so much for watching. If you like what I'm doing here on the channel with reviews, with Audiophiliac viewer systems of the day, with interviews with Herb Reichert, and so much more, if you dig it, please consider supporting the channel with my Patreon. To do so, super easy to do. The address is on the screen. You can join for a couple of bucks a month, up to whatever you want. It's all good, and it's all very much appreciated. At the top tiers, you and I will have a conversation every month at the beginning of the month. And these conversations I've been doing for many years now. So much fun. I so enjoy talking to the people who watch this channel. And yeah, if you like a given video, and I think if you've gotten this far into this one, you probably like it, remember to hit the like button and also subscribe if you have yet to do so. And with that, I can say my work here is at last complete. Thank you again for watching, and I really do hope to see you back here again very, very soon. Bye-bye.